Which games are must bets for week 8 of the 2023 NFL season? What's going on, gridiron gamblers, NFL fans, and NFL bettors? It's Mitch here, back with another week of NFL best bets versus the spread. My favorite picks for week 8 of this NFL season. My goal is to help you win some money this NFL season. And honestly, I just want to have a bounce back week. You could probably sense the anger, the frustration in my voice. Last week was the worst week ever. So this week, you know what that means. It's time to bounce back. I went back to the lab and now I'm ready for another NFL week. This season, 59% on the year, 24-17 on our best bets versus the spread, even after an 0-6 week. So we're going to get back above 60% here shortly. Gronk, spike that like button. Subscribe to the channel for weekly NFL best bets versus the spread, just like this, and hop in the comment section below, man, and let me know your best bet for week number 8. Let's waste no more time. Let's roll and begin with the first pick versus the spread, which is my New England Patriots, who I've been shredding for the last couple of weeks here on the channel. But the Patriots showed up last week in a big way. I faded them last week, and that was by far my worst pick, taking the Buffalo Bills. Now I'm back on the bandwagon, and some of you may say, Mitch, you're being emotional, you're being reactionary. But here's the thing. I don't think I am, because that was a completely different Patriots team last week. And it wasn't just the way they played. It was who was playing. That's the difference. They weren't playing Juju. They weren't playing Devontae Parker. They were playing Demario Douglas. They were playing Kendrick Bourne. Trent Brown was actually playing. Michael Onwenu moved from guard to right tackle. It allowed the offensive line to actually create space in the run game and actually protect the quarterback. It is a absolutely incredible concept, but that's exactly what happened. We saw the offense that I thought we might see under Bill O'Brien at the beginning of the year, and now it looks like we're finally seeing that now. Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, these guys being involved throughout the game plan. And then defensively, we know Bill is going to do his thing, but that was without Matthew Judon, without Christian Gonzalez, without Josh Uche, without Keon White. All those players removed from the lineup, they were still able to get pressure on Josh Allen. They were still able to have a pretty good day defensively. And now you take on Miami, a team that is a little bit of a fraud, right? They haven't beat a good team. They've really been good against bad teams. And I think you would still include New England in the bad category right now. But it's 9.5 points in division. This game was decided by 7 not too long ago. And the team that's gotten better, in my opinion, is New England. New England didn't have Trent Brown in the first outing. That's by far their best offensive lineman. That was when their offensive line was in shambles. They couldn't block Van Ginkel in that game. It was ridiculous, right? And now Tyreek Hill pops up on the injury report. Raheem Mostert pops up on the injury report. Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, all these guys potentially not at 100% for the electric Miami offense. Tua has actually never had a great game against Belichick. He's never thrown more than 1 touchdown against the Patriots. He has never lost against the Patriots, but he's never actually had a great game and blown the Patriots out. You can definitely say that. Miami's defense is pretty overrated, and then you factor in that David Long is injured, Javon Holland's on the injury report, Xavier Howard is injured, didn't play last week, don't know if Jalen Ramsey's coming back yet. There's some injuries all over Miami's roster, including the offensive line, which missed all 3 of the left side of that offensive line. They didn't have Armstead. They didn't have their left guard, Isaiah Wynn, who's out for long term. And Connor Williams, their center, also injured. So will they have an offensive line here against the Patriots pass rush that's going to get Uche back this week and really thrived against Buffalo? That's why they slowed them down. Plus, New England will have Jonathan Jones, the Tyreek Hill stopper, back in the lineup. They did not have him in the first outing. And J.C. Jackson is also in this secondary playing really good football. So it just feels like the Patriots are healthier this time around. The Patriots actually have figured out a formula offensively. And it's not because of the coaching necessarily. It's because of the personnel, which makes me believe in a turnaround for the Patriots. So I think this is great value on a New England team that went through a significant down point and a huge slump. But as Belichick always does, he adjusts. And I think the Patriots have adjusted. And I think they're going to get closer to the team we thought they would be in the preseason, which is an average team. So I think this game will be decided within one score. The Patriots might actually even win this game. So I'm definitely all over the 9.5 points in this matchup. If Tyreek Hill does not play, you have to bet this game because he might be the MVP of the NFL right now. Moving to the next second best bet of the week, I have the Houston Texans -3 versus the Carolina Panthers. And I understand that this is kind of a good spot for Carolina. They're 0-6. They're coming off a bye. They've switched play callers. So there's at least some intrigue and potential for the Panthers to get better offensively, to improve, and to surprise some people. And I get that. But this is a good Houston offense. This is a good Houston team. This is a good offensive staff. This is a good defensive staff. This is a good coaching staff for the Houston Texans. And this is the BLV brand pick of the week. This is that pick where CJ Stroud was my guy. CJ Stroud should have been the number one pick in my eyes. And this is his chance to prove it. You don't think CJ Stroud, for as good as he's been playing all year, that he's going to have more motivation coming into this matchup than any other? And he's playing the worst team in the NFL. And a defense that is going to be without significant pieces. J.C. Horn has been out long term. Their cornerback group has been torn to shreds by injuries. Their linebackers are missing Shaq Thompson. Their safeties are now missing Jeremy Chin and could potentially also be missing Von Bell, who's on the injury report. So this secondary is in shambles. The defense in shambles, especially in the coverage area of the field, in the back end of this defense. And then you just go at the fundamental level. The Texans have the 10th best quarterback according to EPA. The Panthers have the 31st. Offensively, the Texans are 13th. The Panthers are 27th. The defense for the Texans is top 20. It's 18th. The Panthers is 30th. In every category, the Texans have proven to be at least an average team. I think they're being slept on. I think they're being underrated. And honestly, I think the Panthers are a bad football team that don't have a lot of playmakers and don't really have a lot of upside on either side of the football for me to say that's the matchup that they'll take the Texans down with in this game. I don't see it. They've got the better quarterback, in my opinion, the better team. And I think the Texans are still being slept on, so you can get some value here at only -3 in this matchup. The next best bet is the Minnesota Vikings at a pick'em traveling to Green Bay. Now, I never really love to pick a road team at Lambeau, but as we've seen this year, the Packers haven't been great at home. And I personally feel like this is a complete mismatch in a variety of ways. The Vikings just had the best game of their season versus the 49ers, and I think a lot of people will view that as a fluke, but I take a lot of stock into that. First of all, Kirk Cousins, yes, he had the best game he's had on primetime we've probably ever seen, and he might not play to that level for the rest of the year or the rest of his career for all we know. But the man was phenomenal in that game. But what I can really take away from that game is how impressive the play calling was on offense and defense. Kevin O'Connell was a wizard on Monday night versus a very good San Francisco defense. And on the other side, Brian Flores has improved this defense leaps and bounds from last year. Brian Flores put together, in my opinion, the trickiest game plan that the Niners had faced all season long. It wasn't like Cleveland, where Cleveland just kind of physically dominated. The Vikings just tricked Brock Purdy, and overall made big plays in the game. And we've seen a Packers defense not able to make those big plays, getting physically dominated in the run game week after week after week. So you're telling me that I have Brian Flores taking on Jordan Love. Jordan Love has been so inconsistent with his mechanics. He is missing numerous throws, especially down the field. And that gives me all the confidence in the world in Minnesota's defense that is highly aggressive. They're going to force mistakes from Jordan Love. He's going to turn it over. And even if he has a man open, he might miss. There might be a couple plays in this game where the Packers could turn the tide, but Love might miss it due to his accuracy. He might be the most inaccurate quarterback in the league right now. The run game for the Packers isn't working. The Vikings are a very good run defense. We saw that also on Monday night. And if it's only A.J. Dillon, because Aaron Jones is still beat up, there's not going to be much explosiveness from the run game of the Packers. So I just don't see how the Packers score a lot of points here. I could see a lot of ways that the Vikings turn the football over and potentially could get into a leading position and then really control the game. On the other side, you're talking about Kirk Cousins and O'Connell with a decisive edge over Joe Barry, especially if he doesn't have Alexander, because it feels like the defense without Alexander falls apart. They can't cover out anyone. It opens up one side of the field pretty consistently, and then teams are able to run on them pretty consistently as well. And we've seen, even without Justin Jefferson, this is a top 10 offense in the NFL, a really good tackle duo that can protect Cousins even on the road. Good offensive lines are important on the road, and I believe the Vikings have one. I just don't think this line makes sense. I think the Vikings are actually ascending. Last year, they were a fraud. I think this year, they're better than their record, and I think they win this game against a Packers team that right now is playing like a bottom 5 team in the NFL. They just lost to the Broncos. Okay, so it's a best bet for me this week. The next best bet, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints on the road, -1 versus the Colts. This one doesn't appear like a best bet on the surface, just because Colts have been pretty good this year. The Saints have been up and down this year. They're both kind of the same. You would usually lean towards the home team in this case with the Colts, right? Because they're both pretty much the same. But I kind of feel like this is a great matchup for the Saints. This is a matchup league, and when you look at what Gardner Minshew did last year against the Saints, some people might remember he had to fill in for Jalen Hurts, and that was like the week after he torched the Cowboys last year. Some of you may remember this and see where I'm going here. Gardner Minshew has the same play caller as last year, so there's carryover scheme to scheme, but there's not carryover personnel-wise, right? The Eagles had a better offensive line. The Eagles have better receivers. The Eagles have a better run game. The Colts do have a very good run game, don't get me wrong, but he's facing the same Saints defense with a lot of the same pieces, but especially the same scheme. And I just think this is a spot for Dennis Allen to back Dennis Allen and his defense here against Gardner Minshew coming off a really good game to fade Gardner Minshew. He's not going to have 2 great games in a row. I love Gardner Minshew and the mustache, but I just don't think he's going to have 2 great games in a row, especially against a scheme and a defense he struggled against last year where he only put up 10 points. The Saints beat the Eagles shockingly 20-10, and I do believe that there's something to that matchup where I think Allen is going to have the answers for Steichen's approach and his scheme, which then on the other side, Derek Carr knows Gus Bradley really well. They actually were on the same team for a few years there with the Raiders. So he's faced his defense in practice, in games as well, in the division versus the Chargers for many years. So Carr's very familiar with this scheme. And at the same time, the Saints have decisive receiver advantages versus the Colts cornerbacks. So I think that Carr will have success in this game. I don't really fear the Colts from a front perspective here even. And I feel like without Grover Stewart, that the Saints will have more success running the ball than maybe they typically would if he were in the lineup. So some balance will definitely be involved for the Saints offensively. But I really think that their defense that ranks 5th versus drop back pass game and ranks 3rd versus the run in EPA, I think their elite defense comes to play, forces some Gardner Minshew mistakes, allows Derek Carr to have success on offense versus a scheme he's familiar with, and they win this game outright. After being competitive against Jacksonville and kind of figuring some things out offensively last week, they also have extended rest coming off the Thursday game. So a lot of things that I like when it comes to this matchup for the Saints. Next up, on my best bets, I've got the Cleveland Browns, the Brownies, on the road at the Seattle Seahawks, plus 3.5 versus the Seahawks. This feels like a really good line. I just really like this spread. I really like the points in this matchup. It's a low total. It's a defensive game between two defensive teams right now. I want to emphasize, Seattle is a defensive team right now. Their offense has not been performing well. They just played the Cardinals. 20 points versus the Cardinals last week at home in that same stadium. The Browns need a big bounce back spot from their defense, and I think they match up well versus Seattle. Seattle has good receivers that like to go vertical. Cleveland tends to play really good man coverage on the outside. Seattle doesn't have a super creative passing attack, and I believe that Schwartz will take advantage of that. I think they'll be all over Seattle's money concepts in the passing game with that man coverage, and I think Cleveland has definitive advantages on the defensive line and the offensive line. You look at Seattle's offensive line, they've struggled all year. The Seahawks have struggled in the red zone at times this year. And Cleveland, I think, is going to be able to block Seattle post Nwosu injury, who is Seattle's best pass rusher. They brought in Frank Clark. He's not what he used to be. I'm not worried about that. And how much is he really going to play in the first game? Cleveland's offensive line has been getting better since losing a player or two on that unit. And it feels like the run game, even without Ford, will be fine with Strong and Hunt potentially playing in this game. I think PJ Walker will actually be more comfortable with another week of practice and another week of the OC and him going over and Stefanski going over the game plan of what they like, what they don't like, and getting familiar with each other here. I do think that Seattle's defense has been pretty good. I'm not going to lie, but I do think that Cleveland can protect them, and I do think PJ can make some plays, make some throws in this game. I do think Amari Cooper is going to be a challenge for these guys, and I do believe that overall, the big point of emphasis is that Cleveland's defense will keep this within a field goal. So you're getting a hook here in a low-scoring game. I definitely feel like the better team on the line of scrimmage could take this game. So I'm going to take Cleveland plus 3.5 as another one of my best bets. The next matchup is the Chicago Bears, and this is the final best bet. The Chicago Bears at the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday Night Football. I know, rookie quarterback on the road on Sunday night. That's scary, but you're telling me that Brandon Staley has to cover 9 points? Like, I'm going to bet that every time, so it might be ugly. It might not be your favorite pick in the world. I think it's just something you have to do. The Chargers have only won 3 games in the last 2 years by 2 possessions. So I'm looking at the odds and suggesting that the Bears that have played pretty well as of late, they competed well with the Vikings team that I have a lot of respect for as of late. They beat the Raiders senseless. And they also destroyed Washington. So although Fields was in for some of those moments in games, I feel like you've got the better quarterback that actually can pass the ball here in terms of being efficient in the passing game. And I think the Bears will be able to run the ball with Foreman a little bit in this game and keep pace with the Chargers. And a Chargers offense that hasn't looked pretty post Mike Williams, a Charger offense that is too Keenan Allen reliant, and a Charger offense that has a Justin Herbert that is missing throws left and right and not playing to his standard. I've watched his games closely, having bet on both of them the last couple of weeks, being on the Chargers side versus the Chiefs and being on the Cowboys side against the Chargers 2 weeks ago. And I've seen Herbert not play to his standard. So I'm fading Herbert with his injury. I'm fading Staley having to cover double digits. And I'm taking the rookie quarterback that not a lot of people know about and a defense that I think is playing a lot better here in Chicago. So give me the Bears plus a bunch of points on Sunday Night Football in a primetime spot to be motivated and play competitively versus an overrated Chargers team. Those are my best bets versus the spread for week number 8. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more. And don't forget to check out my Patreon, link in the description, if you want to check out the rest of my bets. I post all my bets every single week for the NFL. You get it for only $3 a month, so it's at least worth checking out. If you don't like what I'm doing over there and you don't like my picks, then of course you can unsubscribe just like that. But check it out, guys, and you can also just support me and the channel and the brand by heading over to Patreon. There's also the BLV vs. Consensus podcast, which is another breakdown of the weekly matchups that is only exclusive to Patreon. So check that out, guys. Thank you for watching. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Good luck on your bets. Peace.